go. So welcome everybody to Master Brewers Association District Northern Illinois Shop Talk. I am Andrew Mason, the current president, and we have our other board members here. If you want to introduce yourself, Ryan, you want to start?
Hey, I'm Ryan Clooney, the Vice President, District Northern Illinois. Happy to be around. I'm a brewmaster at Crystal Lake Brewing and longtime old guy.
I'm Doug. I'm the district clerk and with Hopsteiner out here in Yakima with a couple of my colleagues, and I'm a short-time old guy. I don't know.
You're old.
Okay, yeah.
Bobby?
I'm Rob Hunter. I'm the brewmaster at the Hofbräuhaus Chicago. Also a longtime old guy. And I am the Board of Governors representative for District Northern Illinois.
Matt?
Matt Gallagher from Half Acre here in Chicago. Pretty new old guy, but happy to be part of the team. And I'm the treasurer of the District Northern Illinois MBA here.
And we also have Keith Gabbett from Goose Island, who's our current technical chair, and Paul Schrader also from Steiner, who is membership chair, and Greg Burke from Country Malt, who is on our scholarship committee chair. And I think that's it for the board right now, but we are also extremely fortunate to have some great reach in the hop community. It doesn't hurt to have a couple choice personnel on your board to reach out and invite some people, but we also have some great friends, and we have reps here from Haas and from Yak Chief and from Steiner. And I got a last minute message from our friends at Roy, and they said, of course, because harvest has just started, that they are getting pulled in too many directions, so they had to pass on joining us tonight. But I assume that we're going to have some more people join us as well. And the idea for tonight was just to, if this is your first shop talk, the idea was that getting brewers and people in the community together and just the opportunity to share a beer and talk about a specific topic with low stakes. It could be a technical conversation, it could be a casual anecdotal conversation, but when you get brewers together and cross-pollinate ideas, usually good things happen. And we will jump in and out to moderate the conversation, but we wanted to talk about Hops 2020 because this is a very different year, and since we have a lot of very experienced and learned folks joining us tonight, why don't we start out with what makes this year different from every other hop harvest? We were just kind of having the conversation in the pre-show, as it were, about it feels like this is a muscle that we don't get to flex this year in terms of going out to Yakima and doing the kind of annual ritual of selection. But anybody that wants to join in first, feel free to either raise your hand or unmute yourself and let me know what are the first things that come to your mind in terms of hops and hops harvest for 2020.
Hey, Andrew, I can just jump in real quick. This is Steve with Yakima Chief Hops. And really the only difference that we're going to see this year, instead of all of our eligible customers coming out to Yakima for harvest, we're going to bring the harvest to them. We're going to bring the selection to each one of our brewers so they can grab and smell and pick the greatest hops for their upcoming year 2021.
Yeah.
Hey,
Andrew, I would like to wish all my fellow hop peers a real bountiful harvest, and let's all have a safe harvest. I know that we'll do our best for us and for our customers. So go get them, guys. I mean, we do this collectively as an industry. So, it's always fun to kind of talk over how the harvest is going at the sports center, but hey, that's not going to happen this year. So we'll just try to do it as virtually as possible. But really, seriously, everyone stay safe out there and let's have a good one.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, because we definitely
cheers.
want to make sure that we get to a product so we can get the hops, the finished goods to your brewery. So yeah, well said, Roy. We need to have a safe harvest. There's a lot of moving pieces to harvest.
How do you guys see as a, so I've been lucky enough to go out to harvest several years in a row. And I mean, half the fun is hanging out with all your peers and having a great time. And then you have the actual selection of the hops that you're selecting, or the sensory valve of the hops you're selecting. And then the kind of the gift is to get to try all those experimental hops and rub them and get to know them a little bit. How is that going to work this year as far as sending out cuts and everything to everybody to try experimental hops, or is that not going to happen this year?
It's going to happen. Yeah, we're definitely planning on making it happen. You know, we're going to focus, as you know, the rest of the hop folks are, getting contract lots out to all of our breweries so they can select their hops, and then once we kind of get that done, that's kind of critical during the harvest. You know, during harvest, then we're gonna get with Nikolai and all his new varieties that he's got coming down the pike, and get those out to folks to rub and do some pilot brews with and do some sniffing with, and it's just gonna have to be via overnight mail this year instead of sending them home with you or having you rub them out here.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend to invest in FedEx and UPS. That's about, they're going to be getting a ton of business here in these next 4 weeks. But Mike, my colleague that handles the Midwest, Micah, if there's anything, from our perspective that you might want to chime in to kind of give people a feel for what's going on.
Well, as you know, we breed jointly at Hop Breeding Company with Yakima Chief Ranches and John I. Haas. And so Joe's here from YCR. We just had commercialized HBC 692, which is now Talus. I think a lot of you guys probably know kind of what's happening in the pipeline, but it's that next step down of, when you're out here, those tangible things you're talking about, Ryan, is can you see what's coming up the pipeline and how do we get you that information and those samples? And I know we're all going to, be in touch with our direct accounts or key accounts to at least update you on kind of what's happening with the breeding program, but also in general. Joe, do you have any insight from your side?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Micah. With a lot of those things in the pipeline, at least like with the elite lines that we're calling them in HBC, the 630s, 472s, 586, those type of elite lines that a lot of you guys on this have had the chance to use and play with already. Those we have, planted out to a certain acreage that there are going to be quantities available still. Unfortunately, it's tough with a lot of that stuff and that magic that Ryan's talking about, and going out and being that one single hill, that one plant that is genetically unique and offering what it offers, and being able to evaluate that right there in the field. It's going to be hard to bottle that and capture this year. Unfortunately, a lot of those times where it is just one plant, that just leaves us enough quantity, maybe just to fool around with in our own respective pilot brew houses and see if it's worth making that next round of selections for. But yeah, it's unfortunate. A lot of my job working at the farm is hosting a lot of you when you come out to visit, and I'm gonna probably be less tired and my voice won't be gone, but I'm definitely gonna miss the company. So weird year. What can you do?
I think there could be some benefit. A lot of times when people come out in earlier September, or some of the stuff isn't quite ready yet, and you get wrapped up in what's ready, where we can kind of prep some of the you were saying the more advanced stuff that you have more supply of, but that mid-range kind of stuff, be able to get it dried, get it to you in a where they all kind of are an even playing field, as opposed to walking through maybe something that's not quite ready and trying to leave a hill or two up with something that is, or trying to play that game to have you guys out experience it. I mean, there could be a slight benefit to getting a pipeline where dried, picked perfect, mid-level experimentals can get distributed to brewers and get the input, and that's been something that we've been established in the past, but have it, trying to look at the silver lining from the sunny side, but have it be like a post-harvest, here's all the experimentals dried in a little package, let's get some feedback. I don't know, I think that
Hey, how much of a on the for you for those of you on the supply side, how much of a curveball has this year been in terms of demand, especially for different varieties? Where I feel like we lived through 2007 of having super short supply, and there's been all of these corrections in terms of what varieties to grow and the ratios of alpha and aroma. And now with COVID hitting and production being hit so hard, obviously lots of customers have contracts written, but what have you guys been doing, or what can you share in terms of your internal conversations about planning for the future in terms of what to plant and how much of what, and trying to figure out how to weather the storm on the agronomic side?
Well, Andrew, from our perspective at Haas, it would have definitely changed if this pandemic had started as compared to March, April. If it started in December or January, we could have made those changes with what we were trying to grow in the industry, I think, in general. Because right now, it is what it is going into the year from an acreage. We're going to be up, I think, as an industry, we're going to be up almost 2,600 acres. That'll bring us up to almost 59,000 acres. And we are projecting somewhere about 117 million pounds on hops. These are going to be all-time highs. But the usual proprietary hops are still big in there. What I'm doing and what Doug's doing and what the groups are doing is, from a supply chain standpoint, is continual talking to our customers and really getting them into the varieties and the amounts that make sense. And just, I think overall the industry has done okay. We've done okay. I know the others and our peers have done good. So it's an interesting dilemma where we thought it may not shook out that way, but I think we're in decent shape. And going forward is an unknown, but we feel confident in where we are right now. We like where we are. It's just a matter of continually talking to the customers. Mike, I don't know if you've got anything before we hand it over to Doug or anybody else.
I think the interesting part is, as Roy said, the course was kind of set. You could maybe single string some fields and do some things to mitigate some of these overages, but you again had shifts in acreage from Citra Mosaic growing to Cascade Centennial Chinook, declining again, like the third or fourth year of reductions. And so, Cascade could be going from maybe 10 million pounds to 7 million pounds this year, which, if you need that in your beer moving forward, but you're not ready to forecast that, it's hard to kind of plan those things for growers in the industry. So I think it's a great question on acreage shifts and how do you plan and forecast when the great brewers that we work with are having a hard time telling what brands are going to be taken up, when do tap rooms open back up, when does on-premise come back? And so those are those big questions that I think keep people up at night as we're thinking about getting this record harvest again in the barn this year.
I think, Roy, you said a big word as far as when COVID hit was communication. I think there was kind of an unprecedented level of communication between customers and hops. As a matter of fact, I talked to several customers that said, during all this, I've heard from every single one of my hop suppliers, and I haven't heard from a whole lot of other folks. And so I think as an industry, we were proactive in trying to get ahead of what 2020 was going to look like, and what could we move out from a contract standpoint, maybe into a later crop year, or could we swap into another variety that maybe would make a little bit more sense and kind of leverage the flexibility that we have. And I think we weathered the storm pretty well. There's it's all going to, once we get this, like Micah said, once we get this one in the barn, we'll take a look at kind of where everyone is for 21 and make adjustments from there as best we can. But it was really a very enlightening time of communication with all of our customers, and I'm kind of proud of what at least what we've done on this team. I'm sure with Haas and the Yakima Chief guys, it was everyone was scrambling, but we were all out there just trying to talk to our customers and get everyone as right as we could.
Yeah, I guess I could just echo all your guys' comments. I agree. I commend all of our peers in the industry for doing what they could, within the situation. Micah mentioned, single strain stuff. I know there was a lot of acres left unstrung this year as well. I know from the corporate level there were tempered expectations, and with so much, you know, anxiety and uncertainty surrounding each individual customer and their regional laws and rules for all this stuff, and it's been very difficult to navigate. But I know that our initial expectations, while tempered and readjusting budgets and expectations month by month, at first there were definitely some rocky roads, and I hope this for our peers as well. But I know that July was actually an excellent month, one of our best July ever, which, believe it or not. So that's is hopefully hinting towards a better trend, and a lot of our customers getting back on their feet and having some sort of a semblance of getting back to reality, hopefully.
And I'll add to that. I mean, it was listening. All of us as hop suppliers, we listened to the customers, and I think we've all responded. And but most importantly, it's you, the breweries, that really have had to pivot. You paused and you pivoted towards what made sense to get that finished goods into the hands of the consumer. And a lot of that we know went to the off-premise, which I just seen numbers just recently. You know, even with the growth that we've seen in off-premise, it does not make up for your on-premise business. And we know truly that it does not make up for the margins that you guys are losing in your tap room. So, I mean, what you guys are doing, you know, in front of all this is just incredible. Just keep it up, because as Joe mentioned, in July, we did have a record month, and we only had it because you guys made changes quickly and are still getting that product out to your customers. So thank you.
Yeah, I was actually going to turn I know this is a hop discussion, but I was going to turn the question around for the brewers that are on the call here. You know, what did you guys think of the challenges that we saw back in, you know, March, April, as far as, you know, managing your hop supply, and what's kind of your outlook going forward with some of these kind of near-term challenges we see, you know, can shortage supplies, and you know, on-premise, what little bit there is may be going away if, you know, when the cold weather hits and you can't sit outside anymore. I'd love to hear your guys' insights on this.
Yeah, it's at least for us, it's been you know, one-off beers, new beers, you know, have really been a struggle to make and find an outlet for. Obviously, draft is a real easy way to try new things, and that's basically new things on draft for us is basically over right now. So we've really slimmed down what we're making, really focusing on, you know, the core beers that we make, and thankfully, I mean, you know, we're all able to work. We're all able to make beer, and you know, we're still buying hops. We're still making beer. We're still selling beer. So you know, we're thankful that we are a distributing brewery, so we're able to you know, keep things moving. The mix of what we're doing is different. I think for sure we underestimated the length that it was. You know, those first 6-8 weeks was like, we'll get through this, and then we'll be, you know, we'll settle back in. And I think as the reality continues to deepen, you're starting to say, okay, well, things aren't changing for a while, and now it's more long-term planning for us and less short-term scrambles.
Yeah, I think I'd echo that. I mean, those first couple of weeks were pretty scary, and no one really knew what was going to happen. Doug, I think you were supposed to come out to the brewery like right before everything shut down, maybe the week before or the week after.
Yeah.
And we were both kind of texting back and forth like, hey, I don't know if you should show up, or I don't know if I'm going to be able to let you in the building. And then everything shut down, of course. But I think we've done we've had to pivot away from, you know, draft sales, which is a huge portion, you know, on premise of our volumes. But luckily we've been able to keep the tap room open. You know, our brew pubs have been slowly coming back up, and that's been a nice outlet. But yeah, it's definitely a game changer, and we're trying to figure out how we can pivot to get more fresh beer out there into people's hands, and this can shortage thing is not helping anyone out. But yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah, for us, it's been pretty much the same thing. We've had a big struggle with can orders. We always used a certain can provider, and we were expecting our cans the 2nd or the 5th of April, and instead of the cans arriving trucks worth, we got an email on the 5th saying that they sold our can contract to another company and left us high and dry with no cans. So we had to switch into kind of retrofitting a labeler that was made for bombers into doing 12-ounce cans. And so that was a huge struggle. We got it down. I mean, we're canning beer. We're getting them out there. It's been a big struggle. We had a little bump in sales initially and as far as packaged goods goes. And then we have seen a pretty decent decrease for June and July, and that we attribute that to local festivals and just going out to beer festivals and things like that. But I mean, I think we're all kind of in the same boat. We had projected certain numbers for 2020 by March 30th or 31st, whatever it is. We knew those numbers were going to be greatly skewed, and we kind of rebounded and kind of reevaluated and worked with our hop companies and kind of made things work.
I had a question. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, for the hop guys, what about fresh hop or wet hop beers this year? Have you had a lot of people still contracting for that? One of the things for me about getting those beers is going out to the fields and selecting the hops that I can put in the brew. How's that been so far?
It's
Go ahead, Steve.
okay. It's still going on, obviously, because of COVID. It's we're not seeing nothing like what we've seen in the past, but it's still happening. Again, thanks to all the breweries that have that high interest for fresh hop beer, and we're glad to see that because that's something special to all of us.
Yep.
Yeah, so pretty much saying we're still seeing handfuls of requests here. It's not nearly been as much as prior years, and I don't know if that's because that beer style typically lends to more just one-off draft type beers and on-premise stuff, but so it's not nearly as much as prior years, but we get a handful of got a handful of requests, and we're gonna fill them up and off we go.
Yeah, I would say the same thing, Doug, from our perspective, that it's there not as much as we've had in the past. We're doing more local, and and with the Fresh Hop Ale Festival being canceled this year in Yakima, that drew a lot of interest for maybe putting some entries that aren't going to be there this year or as much. So yeah, it's still there, like everyone's saying, but we just don't see the amount of activity that we've had. And we'll see that come back in 2021, for sure, because that's always an interesting category. You guys make some really great beers, whether it's in the Northwest or how we can kind of coordinate it to get it to where you are around the country. So yeah, it's a cool category, right? But it's just this year is a little different.
I think Joe loaded some fresh hop today. Did you, Joe?
Yeah, so we've done some Centennial loadouts the last couple days. We've got a lot of Simcoe and Sabro loadouts next week. Still overall, as far as the orders coming in online from across the country that we fill here on the farm, it's, I would say, probably 40% of a normal year for those breweries getting shipped 50 or 100 pounds, those type of quantities. You've got being here in Washington, we still have like Cloudburst and Stoop and Fremont and Georgetown, and those breweries that make excellent fresh hop beers, and they're still willing to drive over the mountains for them. So nationwide, pretty drastic reduction. Locally, people are still showing up every day, it seems like. So yeah.
For those of you on the supply side, what is exciting you most about hops this year? either projects that you have coming down the pipeline, or initiatives, or something about this growing season, or what's the thing that you're most excited to talk about?
Micah, take it away. I mean, we're always excited about some new products that we've had. We've had some new launches on some new products that have just come out here in the last several months, several weeks. Micah, maybe you can touch on that. Always the new varieties, you know, as far as the new experimentals, whether it's us, Steiner, we're always working on what's next. So those are some things that we'll still be able to get into people's hands this year, but it will be remotely, and just won't have that same love, because I miss everybody that's out there who comes to see us. I can only hug my blow up doll so many times. I got to see you guys. And so not having that physical contact is bothering me. I'm getting lonely here. So I definitely need to see people. So, well, Mike, I don't know what else you want to say from our perspective.
I'll keep you company, boss. Well, this might be a chance to balance the market out a little bit potentially with some of the positions on Citra Mosaic. I don't know. But we're hoping for good yields on both varieties, obviously, and want to make sure we have enough to supply everybody and get them taken care of. But there's a lot of cool stuff going on with research and in the hop space. Roy's talking about like Lupo Max, you know, you have all these different concentrated, consistent products in the market, and efficiencies are going to become important. We've been focusing on that, like our partner companies and other companies in the industry. So I think that, you know, things like this will spur innovation, will spur experimentation. You guys have already been doing a lot of that. Most of you have played with most of the innovative products in the industry today, and are looking at different ways to maximize, you know, that hop flavor impact and minimize your loss in the brewing process. And so as you look at things moving forward, I think that's what's kind of cool that may come out of this. And then as I alluded to, the Talus is our new variety, which is HBC 692, but 586, there's 522, there's 630. And so there's things that are coming down, and I think it's searching for that next flavor. You know, the guys at Steiner have a lot of different experimental varieties they're working on as well, and maybe some more of those genetic testing, agronomic things. So it kind of spurs off into there, but there's a lot of exciting stuff going on right now in the industry, and it's fun to be a part of it. It's kind of tough to see our friends in the tap room and some of these smaller guys that weren't positioned for distribution struggle a little bit, but hopefully we can all trudge through it together and then come out the other side better for it, I hope.
Mm-hmm.
Little soapbox, Doug, little soapbox.
No, I mean, similar things. You know, we have, you know, new products, new varieties. You know, one thing I'm kind of excited about this year is bringing, kind of being able to bring harvest to some extent to people that virtually that normally wouldn't really have a chance to experience it. You know, every year we get the 100, 200, well, however many breweries that come out, and we get to experience harvest with them. And this year, you know, I know, you know, all three, you know, Yakima Chief Hops and us are doing some form of virtual harvest that's really going to take harvest to a lot more people that you know, might get a lot more brewers excited about what we're doing out here during harvest, and build a lot more interest. And that's certainly you know, maybe, and again, getting back to the silver lining thing, something that might be a positive that comes out of this, just build more interest in what we're all doing out here, and into those R&D things, like, you know, stuff like Nikolai is working on. And Nikolai and I had a great conversation yesterday with Steve. By the way, Steve Brock came in. He's our newest sales rep.
Yeah, I thought I saw him over there. Hey, Steve.
But yeah, we were having a great conversation on what, you know, he's got coming down the pike, and, you know, what you want to share. But there's a lot of really exciting developments coming soon here.
I feel like the past few years that, you know, you guys have come out and talked to me and been like, 2020, it's gonna be the year. Gonna see some of this stuff. It's gonna be awesome. Can't wait for 2020. So of course, it's you know, the year that all this happens. But, you know, like I said, we got 5 new varieties for aroma that are all high yielding, you know, agronomically fantastic, and, you know, we found a way to break some of the hop, you know, oil dogmas, you know, integrate some really interesting germplasm in. And it takes a long time to do that, and that's why I kept saying 2020. I've been saying it for a while, but you know, we'll still get you guys the hops. You guys can still smell them. My heart's definitely not broken at all. Still am not crying myself to sleep. So, But no, I think you know, and then 2021 when you all get back out here, there'll still be more stuff.
2021.
Yeah, I think, from a industry standpoint, we really kind of cheer for each other. We don't really want a bad hop out there, so it gives hops a bad name. So what Steiner puts out, I think they put out some really interesting things, some good things that the customers want. We put out with Yakima Chief Ranches together. There's some new public varieties that do real well. And I think what's happening this year may change what's happened for 2021. Because we're going to do a great job on getting remote samples out to our customers. I know Steiner's going to do that. I know Yakima Chief's going to do that. So that may change next year. There may be people when they come out for 2 or 3 times in a month, they may only come out once. They only may come out 2 out of the 3 times. The other one may be a remote selection. So we're going to have our act together, just like I know our peers will too. So that may change customer interaction, because let's face it, we are not going back to pre-COVID, not for a while, maybe hopefully when I retire, but going forward, I think it's not going to be business as usual. It's going to change. To what degree and how fast it changes to where we were pre-COVID, we'll see, but it will be different.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. It's a little premature to say, but once you get through this year's remote selection, how much of that process is gonna remain in place going forward? And I think there's in the past there's been some folks who have been amicable to mailing out cuts. Other folks have been a little more hesitant. Obviously, this year everyone is forced to do it, and it's kind of an interesting thing to think about, like how much of all this is sort of, someone used the word earlier, rich, like the ritual of it versus like actually what is necessary to be done. And I'm certainly not going to advocate for brewers not going to Yakima anymore during harvest, but be curious to see next year how harvest goes, and if you're like if you are able to bring this experience to more people in a virtual manner, I mean that's awesome. And but man, it'll be a lot of work to do it both to do it both ways next year.
I think it's really a lot of that's going to depend on how we do it this year. If we really kind of hit the nail on the head and we got all our ducks in a row, and I know that the groups are coordinating as much as we can to make sure that all of our customers have a really positive experience. And as Doug was kind of saying, let's bring the harvest to people that can't be here for this year. Next year is going to be a little bit different, but I tell you what, if we nail it, if we get this to the top of what we can do, and you guys are liking what you see, I can see a little bit of this hanging on for next year. Let's face it, it's all about making money. We love beer. We all do, everyone that's on this call, but it's about a business at the end of the day. So if you have some good reasons, I'm feeling confident that the hops that we provide you remotely work. If you want to save a few bucks, yeah, that might be what's in order for next year. It really depends on where we are as a business going into 2021. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be interesting to see, and I think I would expect there may be some form of hybrid next year of remote versus in person. But there is a bit of a cap on what we can do simply from a practical standpoint. Because when we send lot samples out, we kind of have to lock that lot out until we hear back from the customers that we've sent those to before we can re-release those lots for other people to select from. And so when you start doing that virtually all over the country to hundreds of customers, then from a practical standpoint, it's really difficult to do. So I think it may expand a little bit, and there may be kind of hybrid models that I don't see it as something that all of a sudden everybody, every brewery in the country can start selecting their hops virtually. It's just practically it wouldn't work.
Yeah, and we're gonna miss not having the brewers out in Yakima this year, but obviously we've all made that decision to let's play it safe, get through this. And I think the most exciting thing is each brewery brings out a few selective individuals that come out, and this year all of us are sending out those lots to where there's a bigger experience that you can share amongst your brewing team. So it might be half acre. Matt, you and 4 usually come out. Now you can share that experience with a lot bigger team. So that I think is pretty exciting to have others experience that. Maybe it's that next upcoming brew group that gets to share that experience. And then when we do get back to Yakima, they're coming out to Yakima. You never know.
Yeah,
I'll jump in real quick. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Keith.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what I'm most excited about this year is harvest. It's a hectic, crazy, awesome time, and this growing season has definitely had certain challenges, more so in the spring, with just kind of cool, damp weather, plants not really taking off like they normally would. And then, as we were talking about earlier, we did get some triple digits here in the last couple of weeks that kind of turned the plants off a little bit. But ultimately, the quality is looking nice, and so we're you kind of hold your breath. The die is cast a little bit at this point. So hoping that mite pressure stays away and everyone can get the crops harvested in that ideal window for aromas. And so despite the madness and mostly chaotic conditions, it's that's what I'm most excited for, is just helping our growers evaluate the crop and get everything picked at its premium ripeness.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I'm actually very excited for that virtual portion of it, because as much as I would like to take my whole brewing team out to Yakima, that's just not feasible. We're not as close as, the guys like Fremont and the other West Coasters out there, or Pacific Northwesters. So getting the chance to share that experience with them, even in some form, is going to be I think a big benefit for us. So I'm looking forward to that part. But then I also wanted to say, you guys have to be feeling a little bit relieved that you can focus exclusively on harvest, in the next coming weeks, and not have hundreds of people descending on you, taking up all your time.
Well, I'm going to be buying less Tylenol those 12 and 16-hour days and going to the Lotus Room, yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to complain about it, but, it's fun for the first couple days, I guess. Then after that, but it's all fun. We do miss everybody.
Lotus Room's still hanging in, right? I mean, we're not going to have a horrible realization 2021 that there's no lotusizing.
It's for sale right now. I don't think they're open or doing much.
Oh man.
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
Just like Roy
Keith.
says, we complain about the early flights, then we love to take them. We complain about the long nights at Sports Center, we love to have them. So we're gonna miss it for sure.
Yeah, I guess from a guy with like more boots on the ground, I don't get to enjoy those late night Sports Center escapades as much as I used to. I can't do it anymore. But yeah, as my boss says, Keith, Jason Peralt says, it's kind of makes you want to pull your hair out with all the visitors, and it takes up all your time. But as he says, it's better than when no one gave a shit and no one came to visit. So we appreciate the company.
Hey, for those of you on the supply side, with Steiner, you guys have Contessa now, and I wish Andy would have been able to join us from Roy, because I think they brought forward a newer variety that's a little bit more noble. Are you seeing any kind of trends towards demand for a more traditionally European noble varieties, or is it a little bit more of just having like an American grown offering that's in maybe a more consistent growing climate, or are you guys seeing any kind of maybe I hesitate to use the word maturation in terms of taste or demand for that kind of hop variety, but and of course aroma acreage is always going up and up and up, but are you seeing any kind of even pushback's probably too strong of a word, but maybe increased demand on some more traditional-esque varieties?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it any sort of, massive trend that's going to threaten the dominance of IPAs and IPA hops. But, there's certainly people out there that still want to make a nice, well-balanced lager beer, or, lighter type of style that can utilize a noble hop. And having an American-grown hop with noble hop characteristics is, from an economic standpoint, from a price standpoint, and supply standpoint, is something that appeals to some folks. You know, Contessa's, you know, it's been in the ground for a long time, and its time finally kind of came in the last few years. We had a couple large customers kind of as an anchor and put in some really great beers, and it's found a new life. What were you going to say about that?
Oh, I was just saying, he was saying, you know, maturation, or didn't want to say that, but I think there's a little bit of a groundswell on people making good pilsners. Yeah, I think it's a testament to it.
Yeah, I think COVID kind of helped it a little bit. You know, it turns out, you know, the triple IPA milkshake Cocoa Puffs beer is not necessarily everyone's idea of a desert island beer, and maybe you want to get something that you can drink 3 or 4 of when you're sitting on your couch all day. So I think that might help a little bit too.
You think the low-cal IPAs were a little like ahead of their time, and now they're going to come back in some form of this balanced, drinkable, low-calorie, compete with seltzer? It's kind of, I know it's a market discussion, but
Drinking a Deschutes beer right here now, and it's got a big label on it, 4.2 grams of carbs and 99 calories. I mean, and you see that on a lot of beers these days. Yeah, you know, Triumphant IPA from Summit up in St. Paul. It's 3 grams of carbs and 99 99 calories. It's we're seeing it happen more and more these days. Yeah. I mean, you got it right. I mean, seltzers it's a trend that we can't ignore, the lifestyle trend.
Yeah, it's unregrettable.
Honestly, we as an industry can.
Yeah, I don't know how long those seltzers are going to last in there, but I hate them.
Me too.
Well, except for anyone who's making them out there. Anyone who's making them out there, they're great. All right? Let me take that back a little bit.
Craft seltzer.
So you guys have mentioned a couple different times about this being a kind of a bumper crop year. Everybody seems to be kind of bullish on this year's crop season and everything. Do you foresee any kind of processing capacity issues or any problems coming down the pipeline that have kind of popped up over the last few months?
Yeah, that's a good question. As you start getting into it, you try to get pelletizing as soon as you can. And that's why, from a breeding perspective, you really try to get this stuff to even out as much as you can, just so that you can get on top of this stuff and harvest them at the peak of their freshness, let alone the processing, pelletizing of it. So, yeah, we are looking at the schedules more than we've ever have, just because it does get more challenging because of these extra amounts out there. So we just kind of work with our customers, really kind of, and that's for everybody on this call, is getting that sense of when people need the hops pelletized to meet the shipments for production. So it's an ongoing, not struggle by any means, but it's a challenge that we'd like to meet, and it's a good challenge.
For sure.
I would add to that, Roy, from our perspective here, we've made quite a few of equipment improvements in our pelleting operation the last couple of years to make it more efficient, a little bit faster. We've obviously, as you've heard in the industry, we've had some labor disputes, which have allowed us to actually upgrade some of our personnel in a lot of areas. And so we've also this last year invested a significant amount of money in our CO2 extraction plant, have increased throughput there. So from our perspective, we're positioned quite well to address the increased crops that we've been seeing.
Yeah, I'm staying on that topic. Do you see sort of capital infrastructure projects being affected for next year via, the state of the industry, so to speak? Do you see, there's every year we go out to Yakima, we just see everything was new. We got new kiln, new picker. And are you seeing sort of a slowdown in that area, or still just kind of trying to keep up with what you need to do?
Great question from the board treasurer, by the way, talking about capital projects.
you might see some stuff on hold, but a lot of the growers have put in that money, and invested it, a few years ago and they're starting to pay that off or pay it down or try to get it paid back. And so I think if the market changes for them, they could be a little bit of a challenge because they've not leveraged themselves, but they've put that money out to invest in their business for that planned growth. And so I hope we're at this place where everybody's okay. But I think everybody's probably looking at their capital going, I mean, what do you need to do, and what, it's hard to predict. Do you need to add another line, and improvements at your extraction plant? So those are questions that I think a lot of the companies are asking themselves right now, probably.
Yeah, everything current right now is, was projected, forecasted a couple of years ago. The question is, a lot of you brewers are getting ready to go into some annual business planning with wholesalers, or just annual business planning with your own company for upcoming 2021. What are you guys projecting for? I mean, it's a hard thing to think about right now, and it's none of us know what's going to happen, but obviously we have to put in projections, we have to put in forecasting, and we have to continue contracting. It gives us that guidance on where we need to be as an industry. So be interesting to see what numbers come out from what the projections are for 2021 from the BA, and again, just us listening to our brewers out there, what you guys are seeing is going to happen for this upcoming 2021.
I'll jump in here a little bit if I could. Matt is not only the treasurer of the guild, but also a member of Hop Quality Group. And those guys have definitely helped lead the charge in our industry over the past decade on refocusing our initiatives and where we're putting our energy as collective industries. And I think the whole idea of new everywhere is very much an intentional byproduct of this new normal in the industry, where it's very, very important for us as industry partners between growers and brewers to be completely transparent with each other and to align our interests together. Ultimately, no one's making beer. Let's not talk about seltzers for now, Roy, but nobody's making beer without hops, and nobody's growing hops without brewers to sell them to. And so I'm glad you noticed that. I know that you are invested in a good way, and have a good heart, and mind for our collective industries. And so I think that's a very intentional thing. I think collectively as an industry, we've invested millions and millions of dollars into facilities and personnel that make our industry truly generational. And that's our hope for all of our customers, is that it's not just 2020, it's totally sideways and we'll never be able to take it back. 2021, we're going to have some bumps and some repercussions, and probably for a few years after that, hopefully not for too long. But ultimately, we want to align our interests with yours for when Matt's granddaughter is running the brewery. And, so that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I won't dive into the irony of it, but the symbiotic relationship and going out to see all of your facilities is very inspirational for us to come back and say, we got to get our act together. If we're going to ask our suppliers to do these kind of things, like we better be on top of our game too, if we're to kind of keep pace. So yeah, I mean the level of detail and it's just incredible to see all of the work that goes into it, just from a food safety standpoint. All of the work that is required that you all do on a daily basis is very impressive. But how about hemp? Is hemp still strong in the Yakima Valley?
Yeah, I was curious with all that extraction plant business going on, how much you guys are getting phone calls from adjacent industries about tips on how to run an extraction plant, or probably not taking 5,000 pounds of CBD rich hemp or any kind of THC shake, but there's got to be a lot of crossover that you guys are seeing on the industry side.
That is true. Yeah, we get inquiries almost on a daily basis in that area. I think one of the interesting things is going to be how that industry develops. It's obviously been in a lot of turmoil this year. There was a massive overgrowth last year in the planting. which really put a downward spin on it. And then when COVID hit, it took another downward trend. So that industry is kind of flailing a bit right now, but there's clearly some demand out there, and there's material that does need to be processed, both last year's crop and this year's crop. We'll just have to wait and see. I think the real key is the Food and Drug Administration going to make a favorable ruling that it could be considered grass status with the CBD that you mentioned? Is it going to be used for consumables to be able to put into beers? I know there's a lot of interest there in some of those innovative products, and so we'll just have to wait and see where that goes. But the short answer is yes, there's still a demand out there with the industrial mill.
I'm kind of curious what that's going to do for your cold storage facilities and cold storage in general. I've heard from a few people, a few breweries that I know from around the US, that they've been kicked out of their cold storage facilities because it's been transitioned over to mostly adjacent products, let's say, right? Because they have ready cash and they're willing to pay a higher premium for it. Maybe it's a good time to build some more, cold storage areas and lease them out.
Yeah, cold storage is definitely at a premium overall right now because of the size of this anticipated crop that we see going on. I think what's going to really tell sustainably going in the future years is, are we keeping this amount of hops that are growing this year into next year? There's a thought that it might retract a little bit for next year. But the hop storage is definitely at a premium. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's going to be really all important for people to call off their hops when they can, to just create room for the hops that we have now. So it's a challenge. This is going to be a very challenging year from hops, but those alternative products, Keith, that you were talking about. So we'll have to keep our eyes and ears posted on that as these hops keep on coming in here in these next 6 weeks. It's going to be challenging.
Matt, I know you filled a whole binder full of questions for the group tonight. What else you got on your list?
Yeah, I'm starting to run a little low here. But how about does anybody have a European update on how things are going over in Germany and adjacent growing regions over there?
We see things going pretty good, normal. Doug, I know you guys are really, switched on to the German scene out there. What do you see?
Yeah, I haven't heard. I got a report this morning as I was driving out to the fields here in Yakima that I haven't read yet, but everything we've seen so far has pretty much been kind of, for all intents and purposes, kind of right down the middle. Depending on, there's some variations in the different regions, but nothing. I don't think we're going to have a massive shortfall. I would doubt very much we see an alpha clause, sort of type of crop kick in, but where. It's not in the barn yet, so with Germany, you always kind of just you got to couch everything you say with we'll wait until it gets in. But so far so good. It's still early days.
Have you guys seen any push on your European partners or German partners to standardize operations or Americanize operations in any way? I know Germany's very scattershot in terms of small farms operating in their own way, and sometimes processing equipment is far from the actual growing fields. Do you see any type of midterm, short-term, long-term plans to push processing towards a more standardized way, or is it just like, well, this is the way we've been doing it for all of eternity, and we're pretty much okay with that?
Right. Yeah. Are you talking about processing or harvesting?
Basically everything. I realize that they're very different, but it feels like the European method of harvesting and processing is if you compared your American operations to German operations, it's I wouldn't say night and day per se, but they're very different, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but you're dealing with 1,100 growers versus what we have here, 55, 60 growers. It's just a different scale. It's hops might be one of 10 things that they grow, and so it's a bit of a different dynamic, which isn't to say we don't work very closely with all of our grower partners. Actually, have a very large hop buying team out there that works close with our growing partners to ensure, to the best of our ability, that they are doing the right things throughout the crop year, whether it's timing on spray applications or fertilizer applications. We work very closely with them, but to get them to a scale of what you see from U.S. growers out here that's a very, I would call that a very long-term thing if it ever were to happen.
Yeah, and I would say from a processing standpoint, what goes on in Europe is world class. I mean,
Nikolai's going to jump, so sorry. I just moved.
Nope. Nikolai.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks, Nikolai.
You bet.
Thanks, man.
Bye.
Yeah, getting back to the processing thing, they do a really good job over there, just like we do. I mean, Steiner makes a really good product. Yakima Chief makes a great product. We do. What's going on in Europe and Germany? They've got some pretty sophisticated operations over there. You'd be not surprised. We're not. People always kind of give really good reviews on what's happening over there, and things are always being improved, and capacity are looked at to be increased. The efficiencies, it's always an efficiency gain. Quality really rides everything, but efficiency is part of it, just like what's here in the United States. So every year we're always looking at our equipment. I know that Yakima Chief and Steiner and our other competitors are always looking at the equipment, upgrading the equipment, making things food safe. Matt with the quality group there, great job. You guys really, I think, raised the bar on the products coming out here over these years. So we're all better off for it. And so that's the way I see it.
Hey, Paul, you had come by the other day with you were talking about some of the newer varieties coming out of some of the German breeding programs. Can you either speak to that or Doug on the Steiner side of some of the cool German breeding that's going on?
I think Doug knows a little bit more about it than I do. I just have the variety Solero, which I quite love. And Doug, if you want to.
Yeah, no, of course, Nikolai just walked out, but Alex Feiner is Nikolai's kind of counterpart in Germany, and in the last several years we've started our own independent breeding program in Germany that has adapted our Nikolai and Paul Matthews molecular marker assisted selection program, and they've come out with a couple of new varieties just in the last year, and they've gone to commercial production. One is Akoya, which is another word for pearl, and so it's a pearl substitute with superior agronomics, and then Solero, which actually Ryan brewed a Solero IPA for us that we're going to have to send out with our hop selection lots this year. It's one of the many beers we're going to send out. It's very much more of an American IPA product. So we're taking what we've learned here and bringing it out over to Germany and trying to kind of improve what we see over there. Alex Feiner actually identified the downy mildew gene and got his PhD based on that. And so we got a pretty good group of people over there doing some really great work. And I only expect it to grow over the years.
Hey guys, I'm gonna have to take off. Really appreciate you guys hanging in there. We got a new little one, so I got to see how the hell that little one's doing. Doug, good luck with Notre Dame this year. I'm gonna be a Notre Dame fan now. The Big Ten's not playing.
Well, yeah, I hope they go 2-0 until the season gets shut down. But thanks, Roy.
But really, everyone have a safe harvest, a very bountiful one, and thanks for having me on tonight. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Roy. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Cheers. Thanks.
Take care.
See you, boss.
Here's a question for anybody that wants to jump in. If there was one thing that you could have hop related that doesn't exist yet, what's the thing that you're looking for that you'd like to see?
Something that's hop related. One thing.
I mean, yes, this is a hop conversation.
So, okay, that's gonna leads into another question that I had. I've heard of Oh, I might have frozen there.
Yeah, Keith, we're losing you.
I think I might be frozen.
Oh, I think you're back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, try again.
Okay, cool. So I've heard a lot of people mention, their extract plants, and I've seen a lot of hop products being advertised. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? And I think to your question, Andrew, what I'd like to see is some kind of a dry hop product that could actually give me the same quality hop character that I get from actual like T90s or T45s.
Sorry, what was your extract question? The first half of that question, Keith?
What different hop products are you guys coming out with, and do you see that as kind of the next big thing? Because I've heard a lot of talk about that recently.
From an extract and like downstream DSP type of product. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we can't tip our hand with what new coming down the pike, but I guess what we can say is we are looking at the trends in the industry and looking at products that bring aroma characteristics and maybe not eliminate, but eliminate bitterness, and we're kind of looking at different trends in the industry and how potentially extract and downstream products could potentially fill some of those needs. I don't know, was that cagey enough?
You said it perfectly. You didn't give away any secrets.
With that being said, there's, and you have certainly played with probably most of them, but for the other breweries, there is a toolkit of products out there that are currently available that can solve a lot of problems in the brewery. I know, Ryan, you've played, and Matt, you guys have played with a lot of different various extracts and downstream products and use them in your processes.
Yeah, with pretty good success too. It's a what's coming up, and what is there and what is coming up is pretty exciting. So it's been nice to work with you guys, of course, but as friends, but also as industry people of like minds. It's been a pleasure to try to work through and figure out what works and what doesn't work, and just the availability of different things and different options has been nice. And then I think one of the strong points is the availability of information on not only what the product contains and does and will do, but how to use it and how to, the whole thing is just a tight package of information that you can instantly take as anywhere from a home brewer to a 2 million barrel year brewer and understand it and use it effectively. So it's been nice.
Yeah, I would say if we can eliminate hop creep, that'd be nice.
I think some of the concentrated stuff, even like Cryo and Lupomax and stuff. Yeah, no doubt, Joe. Less polyphenols, potential less enzyme, enzymatic activity. There's some of that efficiency stuff, but I think some of the vegetation may add to some of those flavor characteristics. So to your kind of question, Keith, is like, everybody's working on the holy grail to kind of mitigate the dry hopping losses with some sort of extract type product or soluble product in the fermenter, but it's always tough to get those flavors that, the half acres, the goose, the folks that are making the different hoppy beers are known for. And I'd like to pick some of the brains of some of the R&D scientists, especially like New England IPA. Some of those guys are adding 8 pounds per barrel, loving the flavor, but I don't know if it's the best, for their process. So good questions, good thing. There's a lot of stuff coming.
Matt, I once heard someone liken hop creep to punk music. If it's too loud, you're too old.
I could see that.
I disagree with
Somebody
that.
Get Doug a lager. Somebody get Doug a lager.
Yeah, we all have product out there that we currently are, using out there, or something's in the pipe work. As Micah said, Cryo continues to grow in our portfolio. And you talked about the New England IPAs. You seem to find a lot of Cryo usage with the New England IPAs. But we're always listening to what our brewers are asking, and trying to find out what complements your needs.
The Holy Grail, you mentioned Holy Grail, Micah. The Holy Grail is still going to be bespoke hops, right? Like once we can get the entire fingerprint of every aroma and flavor gene to turn on or off. Like I think I've told this story before, but in one year, in an experimental yard, I rubbed a hop that smelled precisely like some of the nicest Parmesan cheese you've ever tasted in your life, and it wasn't unpleasant cheesiness at all. It was like a gorgeous round Parmesan character. I don't know how you would ever use it in a beer that would be pleasant, but in that same yard, just a couple, hills over, rubbed a hop that smelled like purple. Like it was like when you walk at harvest, when you walk through the fields of the Concord grape yards, and it's overwhelming purple everywhere. And I don't think either of those hops came anywhere near, development. But if you could figure out exactly what turns those genetic markers on and off, and everybody gets like trademarked copywritten hops, and then you've got a proprietary variety.
Somebody find Paul Matthews back there at the Steiner shop talking hop genetics.
There's 3,000-ish roughly chemical compounds that contribute to that. We'll get right on that for you, Andrew.
Yep.
That's, I think, the brewing side, the trials, it's one reason why we have a brewery at Haas, is so Virgil can take a look at these hops and run them through the HBC and look at selections and what smells good in the field, what brews well, what's agronomically good. I think, YCR is doing a lot of similar testing and stuff. And then, of course, all our partners are looking at stuff. But you're exactly right. If we could breed for flavor, that'd be, I guess, Michael Ferguson and Jason would be just popping out a new hop every year. Here's the grape hop. Here's the strawberry hop. That's the challenging part too. But what's the market want? That's the hard part as well. Like Sabro is such a unique flavor space, and it can turn people off at times if they don't like some of those strong. It's similar to Sriracha, I think, in some ways if you're not careful with it, but it's all how you apply them and such. So just chatting with you guys.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. That's what's interesting. We can figure all that out on our side. We're not even close, by the way. But in a perfect world, if we did have all that figured out, and the fractionalization and how they all accumulated in different varieties, that'd only be halfway there, because then we got to figure out how they perform in beer and how they biotransform and how they interact with other hop brands and other compounds. And I think that's what keeps us going every morning, right? We're one of the very few industries in the United States that's still leading the world, right? And with innovation and leading the world with everything we do on any given day. So I think that we could collectively be very proud of that as the American hop and brewing industries, that we are leading the world with innovation. And there's a whole lot of frontier out there, and that's equal parts maddening and inspiring, right? So beats pushing a pencil somewhere else,
Well said.
Any other
cheers?
Any other closing thoughts from either for our supply side or from our brew side?
I think that's a good spot to end on, actually.
Yeah. Next month, we have lined up, since World Brewing Congress is not going to happen in person, and there are a huge list of really, really fascinating posters that are not going to be able to get presented in person. We, as a board, went through the list and contacted a couple different people of some poster topics that sounded really cool. And we are lining up a talk next month about some cool new Brettanomyces talk. So for those of you that are interested, please make sure to join us next month. And we'll have details sent out on that. We will also have our annual business meeting coming up, because in not too long, it's going to be time for me to pass the torch down to Ryan to take over as president. And also, Doug is going to be flying the coop all the way to national to be co-VP for National MBAA. So we have a couple of holes to fill. So if you are in the Chicagoland area and you know that you have interest in joining our board, please get your name forward because we have some spots to fill. And then finally, thank all of you guests for joining us. Of course, you're always welcome, but it's really great to be able to reach out and to have expert voices on any given topic. And this is always one of my favorite times of the year. And it's a bummer that we can't all share together in Yakima this year, but we will find out some new stuff and maybe find some cool new innovations that we carry on into the future. And we will post out a follow-up link, assuming that I can get this video translated onto YouTube without too much trouble. But I guess beyond that, cheers, guys, and thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, y'all. Cheers, guys.
Have a great night. Travel safe.
Have a good evening. Thanks, Andrew.